police officer, you might have them complete that kind of physical test because it is necessary for the job. So you're going to find testing information. There's a variety of ways you can find different kinds of tests. You can look in testing manuals, the MMA, the Mental Measurements Yearbook, which lists different tests and reviews of those tests. You can also look at test prints, which is the Bureau Institute publication, which is published every year, that lists every English published test, and it's very similar to the MMA, except it does not have reviews of the test. You can also hire a professional consultant. Consultants can get pretty pricey, and they're usually found at different universities and colleges, and usually hold a doctorate in industrial organization or related fields, and they can help you to select a test for your job. You also want to determine the suitability of your test. You want to look up the test descriptions. Where was the test first established? What is the exact name of the test? Look up the publication date so you can know if you're using the most recent publication. You also want to know the authors. Is this person qualified for the job? Are they an expert in their field? You also want to look at the different forms. Are there any other kind of versions used? And are these versions possibly used in other kind of subgroups, as in people who might not speak English? Are there any other kind of formats? How is this test formatted? Is it something that can be administered in pencil and paper or on a computer? And does it need to be administered by a specific person? You also want to think about the cost. Cost is very important when determining your test because they can get very expensive. And you need to determine if you have somebody in your staff who can administer this test, interpret it, and score it. And after you've thought about your suitability of your test, you're going to want to investigate it. You're going to want to see, do the testing manuals, are the reference groups that the testing was first administered on, is that relatable to the people that you're going to be administering your test on? You also want to think about test fairness. You want to make sure that items aren't going to reflect any kind of racial, cultural, or gender stereotypes or overemphasize a specific culture. You also want to think about any kind of practical evaluation. You're going to want to maybe ask employees in your organization to take the test, see how they feel about when they take it. Is it something that they would want potential employees to take? You also want to possibly look into independent reviews of the test and overall practical evaluation. How clear are these instructions? How clear is the administration, the interpretation, and the scoring? And would any special equipment be needed when you're going to want to give out these tests? I interned at Snelling Staffing Services, which is an employment agency that focuses primarily on administrative work. So before sending out any kind of temps or temp to perm employees, we usually give them a Prove It test. A Prove It, it's a skills test that identifies candidates' proficiency in Microsoft products such as Outlook, Excel, stuff of that nature. So we wouldn't want to send out an employee to do data entry when they might not be proficient in Excel. So it's a very reliable and cost-effective way to assess a candidate's proficiency with different kinds of products. So when you're going to choose your test, you want to make sure you've clearly defined your criterion, it's valid and reliable, and that the assessment instruments should be understandable and comprehensive. It's also very important that you're going to want to probably create a checklist that organizes the different methods and topics that I previously went over, and make sure it fits all the needs of your company. Next up is Alex, and he will be summing up everything that we talked about today.
Alright, hi guys, I'm Alex. I know a lot of information was thrown at you over this, and we haven't gone over testing really in class yet, so I'll try to sum up some things that I felt were important from the presentation that they spoke about. Popularity, benefits, good practices, things like that. So first, talk about popularity. There are a lot of companies that use pre-employment testing, and if you look here, 13% of companies in the entire U.S. use personality tests. We have 10% of companies use physical testing. Looking at why you would want to do it as an employer, you want to do it because it's helpful to examine candidates. You want to see who's good at what. You know, it increases workplace safety, and you want to improve compatibility between workers. You can put people who score similarly together. You know, hopefully productivity goes up. Why you wouldn't want to do it? It can be very expensive. It can be time-consuming. It might be a turnoff to people who see it as intrusive, or they don't want to apply there because you do pre-employment testing, and they may intentionally put things that they know you want to hear. Why you would want pre-employment testing as a candidate or as an applicant? It allows you to get an idea of what the company is looking for. You get a chance to prove your worth to the company right off the bat, and you can see if you would be a good fit, if you think you would be a good fit for the company based on what the test is about and what they're looking for. Good practices for administering a test as an employer. You want to test, first off, it's very important you don't discriminate. You guys hear this in all your HR classes, I know. Race, color, all that good stuff. If you're using the test to predict success, you want to keep the job description in mind. Nothing's worse than using a not relevant test for the specific position. You want to make sure that managers who are administering the test know what they're talking about, they know how it relates to the company and all those stuff. For pre-employment testing, it's done before the candidate is hired to see if they match what the employer is looking for. You want to try to make it standardized so that there's no discrimination, there's no bias, anything like that. There are different types of testing. I know we kind of blew through them, but psychological testing, aptitude, achievement, general intelligence, you can test for all those things. Con, you can look, it takes a lot of time to complete. Personality testing, you can see part of their character, morals, things like that. Drug test is beneficial for safety reasons. You can hopefully contain healthcare costs, and you want to keep productivity high. A downside of this is it can get very expensive for companies to do. Integrity testing, we talked about that with the morals and things and the honesty. For physical tests, you can do that before you're employed. You want to ensure that employees can complete the tests that are required for the job. You want to increase safe workplace conditions, and con, you might miss out on some people you really wanted, but they failed it. Legality of testing. You want to make sure tests are three things: unbiased, related to the job, and fair. Very, very crucial you don't discriminate. It can be illegal if they are made to reveal impairments. You don't want to go specifically against people who are impaired. You want to avoid legal issues. You want to check the validity of tests before being administered. Be on top of whoever's administering it, the managers that are administering it. You want to make sure they know what they're talking about. You want to avoid sexual preferences, religion, and politics, of course, because that's all personal. You don't want to get into that. You don't need to as an employer. Selecting it, first thing you want to do, figure out what you want to test for and pick something that applies to that. Then, after that, whoever's administering it, teach them about how it relates to the company. Validity and reliability. So validity, like Rachel said, making sure the test measures what it's supposed to measure. Reliability, making sure it can do it consistently. And the suitability, making sure that it applies to the position in terms of the job description and such. All right, so for me, I interned at Stockton University over the summer in the HR department, and when I was applying there, I went in for an interview, and I talked to the person, and they liked me, whatever, and they offered me a position, but they said I had to do a drug test, so I emailed her, what do I have to do, she explained it to me. I had to do a urine drug test. I didn't have to do the hair. I know the hair is the more extreme one, but yeah, I ended up passing, and it worked out, and I got the internship. Thanks for listening.
You sounded surprised.